Before we dive into the windswept past, take a moment to breathe. Find a soft place to rest, dim the lights, and let the day fade. You've come here not just for history, but for quiet, for comfort, and for the slow unfolding of a world long gone. Tonight we'll drift back into a time when empire and ambition stretched across the Mediterranean, a world of marble roads, golden eagles, and soldiers who carried not only weapons, but centuries of legacy on their backs. This is the story of the Roman legion, but not the polished myth whispered in textbooks. No, tonight we'll explore what it truly meant to live and die as one of Rome's finest. Not in glory, but in grit. Because the truth is, you likely wouldn't have lasted a day in their world, and by the end of this, you might understand why. Imagine waking at dawn in a tent made of rough fabric, cold air biting through its seams. There's no warm bed to greet you, no soft breakfast waiting. You're surrounded by dozens of men, all stiff from sleep, the dirt beneath you damp from the night's chill. And before you rise, you already know what's ahead. Miles of marching, the sting of iron armor on sun-scorched skin, and orders barked in a tongue sharp with discipline. Being in the Roman legion wasn't merely about battle. It was about becoming something else. Less a person, more a function. Your body, your will, your very identity, all pressed into the mold of military perfection. Every day began the same. Wake, eat, march, train, repeat. There was no space for rebellion, no allowance for softness. The unit was everything. You were expected to march 20 miles in a single day in full gear, and that gear weighed upwards of 80 pounds. And if you thought you could cheat or fall behind, the punishment was immediate. Discipline in the Roman military was not theoretical. It was brutal and often fatal. A man who deserted might be stoned or beaten to death by his own cohort. And if a group failed collectively, the infamous punishment of decimation was dealt, where 1 in every 10 men was executed, chosen by lot by his own comrades. But perhaps even harder than the pain was the monotony. The endless routine of drilling and digging. Yes, digging. Every night after their marches, legionaries would construct a fortified camp, complete with ditches and walls. Sleep came only after labor. And in battle, there was no room for fear. The line had to hold. Shields overlapped, spears braced. To flinch was to die, not just yourself, but those beside you. And yet, in the eyes of Rome, you were lucky. You were a citizen soldier, granted a place in the machine of empire. And if you survived your years of service, typically 25, you'd be rewarded with land, status, maybe even a measure of peace. But the cost was high, and many never lived to see that future. As we drift deeper into this tale, keep breathing slowly. Let the sounds of the ancient world echo faintly in your mind. The clink of armor, the thud of boots on stone, the distant cry of a centurion rallying his men. Because the truth is, for most of us, the Roman legion would not have been a path to glory. It would have been a crucible. A test we were never meant to pass. Now imagine, if you will, the heat of a Mediterranean afternoon pressing against your armor. Your tunic clings to your skin, soaked with sweat, and the dust kicked up by your fellow soldiers coats your face and fills your lungs. Still, you march. The terrain changes, but your pace does not. Whether through scorching plains, muddy riverbanks, or frigid highlands, the march remains, steady, relentless, indifferent to your exhaustion. The physical toll was only one layer. Beneath that was the psychological strain. A legionary was not permitted to question orders, to show weakness, or to stray from formation. The Roman ideal was obedience, efficiency, and above all, unity. You were one part of a grand moving wall, a machine of conquest. And machines don't get tired. They don't ache. They simply function. Training was designed to break you down and rebuild you in this image. Wooden swords were replaced with iron. Wooden dummies gave way to sparring with real blades. Shields grew heavier and formations more intricate. Even marching was practiced, not just the act, but the synchronization. If one man stumbled, the line faltered. And in battle, a faltered line meant death. Outside of combat, the workload never eased. You built roads, bridges, and fortifications. You dug trenches and quarried stone. The army was Rome's muscle, yes, but also its labor force. And at night, after all was done, you'd return to your tent, exhausted, hungry, and aware that the next day would bring more of the same. Even in moments of stillness, there was little peace. Disease traveled quickly through camps. Dysentery, fevers, infected wounds, all common, all deadly. Medical care existed, but was rudimentary and often brutal. A deep gash might be sewn shut with horsehair. An infected limb, if not amputated, might cost your life. And if you fell ill beyond usefulness, you might simply be left behind. The enemies you faced were not always lesser-equipped barbarians. Many were fierce, clever, and desperate to push Rome back. You might fight in Germania's thick forests, ambushed by warriors who knew the land better than you ever could, or in the burning sands of the east, where heat killed faster than arrows. And when the fighting came, it was up close, shield to shield, blade to flesh, screams filling the air. You'd be told to hold the line, to stand firm as death rushed toward you, no matter how afraid you were, no matter what horrors unfolded beside you. There was pride in survival, in holding formation, in being part of something greater. But pride doesn't soothe an open wound. It doesn't warm you in winter. And it doesn't lessen the ache of years spent fighting for an empire that would never know your name. And yet, for many men, the Legion was salvation, a way to rise from poverty, to earn land, to become more than a nameless farmer or city drifter. But it was a bargain, and the price was steep. So as you lie back tonight, perhaps with a soft blanket and the safety of 4 walls, let yourself appreciate the comfort. Let your body relax, knowing that no one will rouse you before dawn for a forced march. That no one will place a sword in your hand and tell you to kill or be killed. And as you drift into sleep, think of those who once lived this life. Not gods, not marble statues, but men. Ordinary men who endured the unimaginable, who bore the weight of empire on their backs. Men who, if we're honest, lived through something most of us never could. Picture the cold mornings, dew settling over the leather of your armor, breath visible as mist, hands stiff with chill. The sound of the horn awakens the camp before the sun crests the hills. There's no gentle morning routine, no stretching or slow sips of warmth. You wake, you rise, and you prepare, because hesitation is a luxury a legionary cannot afford. You quickly learn to live without comfort. Your bedroll is thin, your rations are dry, hard bread and salted meat. Sometimes, if the gods favor you, a bit of vinegar wine or dried figs. But mostly it's sustenance, not satisfaction. Meals are eaten quickly, under watchful eyes. You share everything, space, food, stories, pain, with the men around you, brothers not by blood, but by necessity. The tent you sleep in is shared with 7 others, 8 men per tent, known as a contubernium. You sleep side by side, your shields stacked near the flap, always ready. If someone snores, you don't complain. If someone cries out in their sleep, you don't ask. Privacy is as scarce as peace, and every man has demons. You keep your own quiet buried beneath discipline and duty. When construction orders come, you're not just a soldier. You're a laborer, an engineer, a brute force with a shovel. Roads must be paved, camps fortified, trees felled, and you, with calloused hands and aching shoulders, swing tools as if they were weapons, because in Rome's eyes they are. A well-laid road is as powerful as a sword, a fortified wall as threatening as a legion. Each day ends with drills. Practiced formations, repeated movements, muscle memory carved deeper with every hour. Centurions shout commands, shields raise, swords strike, and dust rises around you like fog. You move not as a man, but as a part of a beast. 100 legs, 100 arms, a single purpose, to overwhelm, to endure, to conquer. But then comes battle. The rumors always come first. Whispers from scouts, notes on maps, campfires burning later than usual. You feel the tension before you hear the horn. And when it sounds, low and long, it steals the breath from your lungs. You line up. You check your straps, adjust your helmet, tighten the grip on your gladius. The shield is heavy now, but it will feel light when the first arrows fly. Adrenaline does that. It makes burdens vanish and turns fear into fuel. Your centurion paces in front of you, eyes sharp, voice steady. He doesn't speak of glory, he speaks of survival, of discipline, of holding the line, no matter what. And then, the march, the slow, thudding rhythm of boots on soil. You don't look back, you don't speak, you just move. And then chaos. Missiles whistle through the air, screams erupt. You raise your shield and crouch. The enemy charges. You hear them before you see them. Their feet, their roars, the drums of war. And when they arrive, you don't think. You act. Sword strikes. Shield bashes. You twist, block, stab, step. It's not elegant. It's not like the stories. It's dirty, desperate, and loud. The man next to you falls. You feel his blood spray your cheek. But there's no time to mourn. You tighten formation, you press forward. You fight not for Rome, but for the man to your left. And he, for you. When it ends, if you're lucky enough to survive, you're not the same. You count your wounds. You scan the field for faces you know. Some stare back, wide-eyed and lifeless. Others groan, reaching out, hoping someone hears. You return to camp, armor dented, limbs trembling. You clean your blade in silence. You don't speak of what happened. You never do. Night doesn't bring peace. It brings whispers. Some men hum quietly. Others sharpen their blades as if steel might offer reassurance. You stare into the dim flame of the campfire, watching it flicker against the canvas walls, casting shadows that seem almost alive. The smells of blood and smoke still cling to you, to your tunic, your skin, even your breath. You try not to think about the eyes of the man you killed. Instead, you remind yourself, this is Rome. This is the price. Every inch of the empire was paid for in footsteps and blood. And when you lie down, the ground beneath you is still warm from the sun, but hard. You feel every pebble, every root. You wrap yourself in your cloak, more for familiarity than warmth. You listen to the soft murmur of your comrades, the distant calls of night birds, and the occasional groan of the wounded. Sleep does not come easily. When it does, it's shallow and uneasy. Dreams, if they visit you, are murky and cruel. Morning returns with another horn. No one complains. Complaints are for civilians. You rise, stretch sore limbs, eat another bland ration, and clean your gear. A centurion's eyes catch everything. A dull blade, a loose strap, a man limping when he shouldn't be. Everything must be in order. Rome demands it. The days blur. March, build, train, fight. March, build, train, fight. The years pass in this cycle, and yet, despite everything, the brutality, the exhaustion, the fear, a strange sense of pride begins to grow within you. You've survived things others can't imagine. You've stood in formations that shaped the fate of entire kingdoms. You've marched through lands that will one day bear Roman roads and statues because you helped bring them to heel. You've learned to read weather in the sky, to judge time by shadows, to spot danger in a twitch of a branch. Your instincts are sharp, your reactions faster. You've become lean, hardened, unflinching. No longer the boy who joined with wide eyes and soft hands. You are a legionary. But the pride is complicated. For some, it's wrapped in bitterness. For the lives lost, for the promises broken, for the comrades who didn't make it home, for the emptiness that sometimes follows a victory. Because even when the enemy surrenders and the banners are raised, what remains is silence. What remains is the question, was it worth it? And still, Rome moves forward, always forward. New campaigns, new emperors, new borders to defend. Your time in the Legion will end eventually, if disease or blade doesn't take you first. Perhaps you'll be granted land, as promised. Perhaps you'll return to a home that barely remembers you. Or maybe you'll re-enlist, unable to let go of the only life you've come to know. Because after years of war and discipline and hardship, the quiet life, the civilian life, might feel more terrifying than the battlefield. The march has become muscle memory. Your feet move without thought, your eyes scanning the terrain ahead while your mind drifts in and out of memory. You've walked through blistering sun, freezing wind, sleet and storm, and somehow your body just keeps going. Some mornings it aches to rise. The knees protest, the shoulders stiffen beneath the weight of your kit. But there is no room for delay. Rome does not wait for sore bones or weary hearts. Today you march north again. Beyond the rivers, beyond the farmlands of Gaul, into the damp, brooding forests where whispers speak of barbarian tribes and old gods still hiding in the trees. You tighten your cloak and adjust your grip on your shield. The air here smells different, loamy, wet, older somehow. As the column advances, you remember the words of a veteran you met long ago, an old grizzled man with scars that told stories he no longer wanted to speak aloud. "It's not the swords that kill you," he had muttered one night near the fire, staring into the flames. "It's the rain, it's the boredom, it's the silence between battles when your thoughts get too loud." Back then, you hadn't understood. Now, you do. In truth, the Roman Legion isn't built for glory. It's built for survival. Glory is for the poets and marble statues. What the Legion teaches you is how to endure. It teaches you to wait in the cold for hours without moving. It teaches you to wake at a whisper and strike at a shadow. It teaches you that a dropped helmet strap or a chipped sword can mean the difference between going home or being left behind. And through it all, you are never truly alone. Around you are hundreds, thousands of other men, breathing, sweating, aching just like you. You share the same fire, the same bread, the same terror in the final moments before a charge. Bonds form not out of friendship, but out of necessity. A man who watches your back in battle is a man worth more than any coin. You recall the siege, the long, bitter campaign against a fortified hill city. You remember digging trenches in the rain until your fingers bled. You remember the screams of the first assault, howling through the night like wolves circling a wounded deer. You remember your friend Marcus, who always sang before battle, lying silent in the mud by morning. No statue was built for him, no name inscribed on a wall. Just another soldier swallowed by history. But you remember. You always will. And maybe that's enough. Maybe remembering is its own kind of honor. As the march halts for a moment, you adjust your pack and look over the rising hills ahead. There will be another battle soon. You can feel it in your bones, in the murmurs among the officers, in the way the horses are more restless than usual. The tribune rides past, his face stern, eyes scanning the ranks like a hawk. Somewhere out there, another army waits. They do not know your name. They do not know how many winters you've endured, how many rivers you've crossed, how many brothers you've lost. But they will know the weight of your shield, the force of your step, the discipline of Rome, because that is what you carry. Not just your weapons, not just your armor, but the very heartbeat of the Empire. With every step, you bring the order of stone roads and aqueducts to places still ruled by forest and fear. But there is no pride in this thought tonight. Only heaviness. Only the soft ache in your feet, the tension in your shoulders, the fatigue behind your eyes. And yet, when the horn sounds, you move again. Because that's what soldiers do. Not because they love war, but because they've forgotten how to stop. Evening settles like ash. The air is damp and carries the scent of pine and smoke. You've made camp in a clearing bordered by trees too tall to see the tops of. Somewhere beyond the tree line, the enemy may be watching, or maybe not. Still, the routine remains. You drive stakes into the ground, pitch your small canvas tent, and stack your gear just so, always within arm's reach. A legionary is never caught unprepared. Nearby, a few men grumble softly as they light the cooking fires. The rations are standard: salted pork, dried lentils, a touch of vinegar if you're lucky. One man hums a tune from his homeland. Another tells a story, half remembered and exaggerated to pass the time. His words drift through the mist like ghosts. You listen without really hearing. Your thoughts are far away tonight. You're thinking of home, of the mother who kissed your brow before you left, of the brother who swore he'd join you but never did, of the girl who promised to wait and whose name you haven't dared speak in years. You wonder if your village still remembers you. If the streets look the same, if your old neighbors still sweep their steps each morning or gather to gossip beneath the olive trees, you wonder if your home is still standing, or if it was razed, rebuilt, forgotten. The Empire is vast, and the years are long. Time in the Legion is not counted in days, but in deployments. You don't mark your life with birthdays or seasons anymore, but by which border you were posted to, which enemy banners you saw waving above the tree line, which friend you buried under which hill. When you're in battle, time vanishes altogether. It collapses into the beat of a drum, the sting of dust in your eyes, the scream of a wounded comrade, the crunch of metal on bone. There is no past, no future, just survival. But here, in the quiet time stretches, it loops back on itself, replaying memories you thought you'd forgotten. A sunset from years ago, the warmth of your sister's bread, the laughter of a neighbor who died too young. They float in your mind like smoke from the fire, twisting and fading before you can catch them. And even now, years deep into your service, you still sometimes ask yourself the same quiet question. Why? Why do we fight? Is it truly for Rome? Is it for the glory the recruiters promised, the land you might never see, the emperor whose name changes as often as the wind? Or is it just momentum? A boulder rolling downhill, too heavy now to stop. You look around the camp, faces half lit by firelight, eyes weary, backs hunched. Not one of you joined for the same reason. But now, all of you share the same truth. You have become something else. Not just men, not just soldiers. You are instruments of empire, and with that comes weight, guilt, duty, pride. You are a hammer in Rome's hand, shaping the world with every strike. Sometimes you believe in the shape you're making, sometimes you don't. But either way, you keep marching, because stopping means questioning. And questioning out here is dangerous. So you tighten your cloak, lie back onto your bedroll, and stare up at the dark sky. The stars shimmer through the gaps in the leaves. They look the same as they did back home. And somehow that brings comfort, just for a moment. The night passes slowly, like syrup dripping down bark. You hear the low snores of fellow soldiers beside you, the soft murmur of a sentry whispering to himself under breath. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, its cry a lonely echo across the hills. And still, you remain awake. Sleep is strange in the Legion. It comes like a thief, sometimes stealing over you unnoticed, sometimes evading you completely. Even in the quietest hours, your ears stay trained for the snap of a twig, the shifting of metal, the unnatural silence that means danger is near. You used to dream often, of open fields, of running water, of a table set with figs and wine. Now your dreams are cluttered with other things, a comrade falling beside you, his eyes locked on yours in disbelief. The whimper of a dying enemy clutching at your boot, or sometimes nothing at all. Just blackness, deep and still. And when you wake, you're never sure if you were asleep or simply gone for a moment. When morning finally comes, it arrives without ceremony. No rooster call, no gentle sunbeam, just the bark of the centurion and the rustle of armor. The fires are kicked out, the ashes scattered. Camp is broken in silence. You eat standing, chew without tasting. You hoist your pack with aching shoulders and fall into step like a cog sliding into place. The road is long, always is. Gravel crunches beneath your sandal, the sky remains grey, a thick, sullen sheet. The man ahead of you coughs once, then again. You tighten your scarf around your mouth. Plague has no manners. It arrives quietly, taking the strong and the weak alike. You've seen entire units reduced to bones by illness. Not a sword drawn, not an enemy in sight. Just fever and silence, your thoughts drift again. You recall when you first enlisted, how clean your tunic was, how high you held your chin. You'd been proud, certain. They told you Rome was glory, that the eagle's standard was sacred, that service was honor, and you believed them. Some days you still do, others not so much. You remember your first kill. The boy couldn't have been more than 16. His spear was too heavy, his arms too thin. He slipped in the mud as he charged. You didn't think. You did what you were trained to do. Afterwards, you sat by the stream and washed your hands for an hour. The blood was gone quickly, but the shaking wouldn't stop. Your commander called it your baptism. Said now you were a true legionary. You didn't feel like one. You felt like a child holding a thunderbolt. Time passed. You stopped washing your hands after battle. Eventually, you stopped looking at the faces, not because you were cruel, but because you had to. There are many kinds of strength in the Legion. The strength to lift a comrade from the mud, the strength to carry the wounded, the strength to face death without blinking. But there's another kind too. The strength to stay human when the world around you demands that you become something else. And that strength, that's the rarest of all. You march until the sun crests overhead, until your skin prickles with heat and your tunic clings to your back. At midday, you pause in a hollow. Water is rationed, bread is stale, but the rest is welcome. You sit beneath a pine and close your eyes, the whisper of wind through the branches lulling you towards sleep. But sleep doesn't come. Instead, you listen to the sound of 1,000 men breathing, to the creak of leather and the clatter of bronze, to the low rhythmic chant of the engineers laying roadstone by hand, a song passed down through generations, older than most of the men who sing it. And in that moment, beneath the burden of it all, you feel something unexpected, belonging. Not to Rome, not to the empire or its generals or its gods, but to them, the ones who carry the same weight, who walk the same road, who bleed and grieve and laugh beside you, who know your name and the sound of your footsteps. You are not alone. You never were. And somehow that's enough. You rise when the horn sounds, shoulders stiff, eyes heavy. The march continues, it always does. One foot in front of the other through mud and dust and memory. The Legion is not just a place. It is a rhythm, a heartbeat, a song written in footprints and iron and scars. And you, tired, battered, enduring, are part of it now. Forever. The terrain begins to shift as you press forward. What was once an open plain of whispering grasses gives way to wooded slopes and narrow paths. The air grows cooler. The scent of pine deepens. Somewhere nearby, a river rushes over stone, unseen but ever present, like the memory of a song you once knew. Your feet ache. The leather of your caligae, your sandals, is worn at the edges, the hobnails dulled by months of terrain. Every step reminds you of your body's slow unraveling. But there is no time to nurse the small miseries. A legionary doesn't stop unless commanded, and so you carry on through forest and fog, your breath clouding in the morning chill. You pass mile markers etched with Latin numerals, silent monuments to Rome's reach. You've seen these stones in places so remote they feel untouched by time, and yet always Rome has been there before you, carving its name into the world like a scar that refuses to fade. This is what the historians never write about. Not the battles, those they love, not the glory, not the conquest, but the waiting, the walking, the aching sameness of endless days stitched together by duty. They never write about the lice in your tunic, the rot in your boots, the stench of 100 men unwashed for weeks. They don't write about the way your thoughts grow strange in silence, or how you start to whisper to ghosts, men you knew, men you lost, men you might become. Sometimes you see them in the mist, old friends, lost brothers, enemies fallen with eyes wide and questioning. They don't speak, they only watch, and you nod to them quietly, as if to say, I'm still here, still marching, still becoming the thing they warned me about. At night, in the stillness of camp, you sometimes trace the lines of your own face in a puddle's reflection, just to remember who you are. But the image ripples, distorts. Is it still you? Or just another legionary among thousands wearing the same face of exhaustion? Then there are the letters. You haven't received one in months. The courier routes have slowed. Winter is approaching. Roads will freeze. Trade will stop. The world will shrink. And you will be left with only your thoughts. Some men carry their letters pressed to their chests over their hearts. Others burn them as soon as they read them, as if the flame might cauterize the ache of memory. You do neither. Yours sit folded in your satchel, creased at the corners. A few still smell of lavender. You read them when the cold is worst, when the wind bites like teeth and the snow stings your eyes. You read them then, slowly aloud, as though speaking the words might summon warmth. But no warmth comes. Only a strange kind of peace. Because even in this life, in this long, slow unraveling, you are still remembered. And that, in the end, might be enough. The fire crackles softly as the stars blink open above the Roman countryside. Scattered like forgotten coins on the dark velvet of night, the wind has quieted. The tents are still. The voices of your fellow legionaries have hushed into breathing, into sleep, into dreams they'll never speak aloud. You sit alone for a moment longer, wrapped in your own silence. There's a calm here that can't be found in the histories. Not in the triumphal marches, not in the bloodied sands of the Colosseum, not in the proclamations of emperors. This calm lives in the quiet heartbeat of a soldier who has survived one more day, who will rise again tomorrow and the next, not for glory, but because that is what he was made to do. You understand now why most men couldn't last a day in this life. It's not just the weight of the armor or the wounds that never heal. It's the invisible burden, the crushing silence of the soul, the hunger that becomes a second skin, the nights haunted by what you've done and what you've had to become. No statue will bear your name. No poet will sing your valor. You are one of thousands, interchangeable in the eyes of Rome. And yet, you matter. Not to history, perhaps, but to the man beside you, to the letter in your satchel, to the memory of your mother's voice, to the soil beneath your boots which remembers every step you've taken. In that way, you are not forgotten. You are woven into the great, tangled story of humankind, stitched into the fabric of empires, of winter fires, of aching hands and unspoken prayers. As the stars slowly wheel overhead, you lie back and close your eyes. The cold presses in around your blanket, but it is not cruel. It is simply part of this world, your world. You hear the distant cry of an owl, the rustle of a fox in the brush, the soft exhale of a comrade asleep beside you. And for once there is no fear, only the steady rhythm of breath. You are here. You have survived, and now at last you may rest.